Aria Bennett, 28, lived in a modest apartment in downtown Austin, a space that was neat, cozy, and quietly reflected her meticulous personality. She wasn't wealthy, but among the Bennetts, she was the most financially stable. As the head of communications at a mid-sized marketing firm, Aria had worked her way up from the very bottom after college. She never bragged about her success, but everyone in the family knew when help was needed, Aria was the one they called. For years, Aria had been the quiet backbone of her family. No one ever officially gave her the role, but it naturally fell to her. When her dad's truck broke down, when her mom's medical bills piled up, when her younger sister Chloe fell behind on rent, or her brother Tyler needed tuition help, Aria always stepped in. And she never once complained. To her supporting family was a love language, silent, consistent, and unconditional. But Aria's most meaningful contribution wasn't financial. It was emotional. She was the keeper of family traditions, especially the annual summer barbecue started by her late grandmother, Eleanor. Aria remembered those childhood summers vividly, grandma in a floral apron, ribs sizzling on the grill, cousins running barefoot through the yard, and music drifting through string lights in the backyard of their Georgetown home. After Grandma passed, Aria's parents tried to keep it going, but life got busy, money got tight, and slowly the responsibility shifted to Aria. No one asked her to take over. She just did. Since she was 24, Aria had planned the barbecue every year, coordinating rentals, setting up decorations, curating menus, even hiring professional grillers if needed. It became her way of honoring Grandma's memory and, more importantly, keeping the extended family connected. One year, she even postponed a work trip to make sure she was there in time to set up. No one demanded it. But Aria always showed up because in her heart she thought, if I don't keep this tradition alive, who will? This year she had planned to outdo herself. She started organizing in March, reserving vendors, paying deposits for the tent, and live music, planning the menu down to the last garnish. She'd even designed matching family t-shirts for the occasion. For Aria, this wasn't just a party, it was a sacred space for healing, reunion, and reliving the legacy of Grandma Eleanor. She never talked about how much she spent. She never mentioned the quiet bank transfers she made to her parents or siblings. To Aria, love didn't need recognition. But in giving so much, she didn't realize that sometimes her place in the family was tied more to her support than to her presence. And then came a phone call, one that seemed ordinary, but would become the first crack in the foundation. Aria didn't know it yet, but everything she had poured into her family, the love, the effort, the tradition, was about to be betrayed in the most heartbreaking way. It was a quiet Tuesday evening in early June when Aria's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was reviewing the final checklist for the summer barbecue, a notebook filled with months of planning and careful budgeting. When she saw the caller ID light up with Dad, Frank Bennett, she smiled, expecting a question about grill placement or table setup. But the moment she answered and heard his voice, her heart sank. "Aria," Frank began, his tone heavy with hesitation. He only used that voice when something was seriously wrong. "Hey, Dad, what's going on? Is everything okay? We need to cancel the barbecue this year," he said slowly. "I know how much work you've put into it, and I hate to do this to you, but we just can't go through with it." Aria blinked. "Cancel? But we're just days away. Everything's ready." "What happened?" Frank took a deep breath. "Your mom lost her job last week. The store downsized, and since she was the newest hire, she was let go. Chloe's car broke down, the repairs are over $1,000, and she can't get to work without it. And Tyler, his tuition just spiked for his final semester, and the restaurant he works at cut his hours." Each detail cut deeper than the last. These weren't minor setbacks, Aria knew that. But she also knew one thing for sure: she could handle it. She always had. Dad, please don't worry about the money. I've saved for this. I don't mind covering everything. This tradition matters too much to just cancel. But Frank's reply caught her off guard. No, Aria. We can't keep letting you shoulder everything. It's not fair to you, and honestly, it's not healthy. We need to take a step back this year, get back on our feet first. You've done enough. Aria's mind spun. She offered compromises. What if they scaled it down, made it potluck style, invited fewer people, even kept it to just immediate family? But Frank wouldn't budge. It's not about the size of the event, he said gently. It's about not letting you carry all of us anymore. Family shouldn't be a one-sided effort. After the call ended, Aria sat motionless at her kitchen table, the walls suddenly feeling too quiet. Her hands rested on the open notebook, the one she'd spent weeks filling with notes, estimates, and ideas. All of it now felt pointless. Still, she didn't feel anger. If anything, she felt oddly honored that her family trusted her enough to be honest. But somewhere deep down, a subtle ache began to bloom. Not about the money, not even about the party, but about the quiet realization that maybe she wasn't needed anymore, at least not in the way she'd always been. And she had no idea that this moment, the first crack in the surface, would be just the beginning of a much deeper betrayal. On Saturday morning, Aria woke up early just like she had every year on barbecue day. Muscle memory guided her, except this time, there were no confirmation calls from Uncle Joe, no texts from Chloe asking what to wear, no voice from her father urging her to come early to help with the grill. Just silence. Though the family had agreed to cancel the gathering, Aria couldn't let the day pass unnoticed. She couldn't stand the thought of letting the tradition die so quietly. So she made a decision she'd hold a barbecue anyway, not for 30 people, not even for 10. Just for herself. And for the memory of the woman who started it all. She drove to the grocery store alone, pushing her cart past aisles that once held purpose. She picked up 2 burger patties, a few chicken thighs, and a single ear of corn. In the produce section, she reached for 1 tomato and a handful of lettuce. A woman who used to order for a crowd, now selecting portions for 1 each item placed in her basket, felt like a quiet defeat. Back home, she began preparing. She strung up fairy lights in the apartment courtyard, a modest shared space where residents occasionally grilled. The twinkling bulbs, once festive and inviting, now hung awkwardly over an empty corner. Aria mixed her grandmother Eleanor's famous marinade in a tiny bowl. It was a recipe she'd memorized as a child. But stirring it now for such a small amount of chicken felt like she was dishonoring its legacy. That afternoon, she carried her mini grill to the courtyard, set up a folding table and 1 chair, and placed a single dinner plate down with care. She played the traditional family playlist, Grandma's old favorites blended with a few modern songs Chloe and Tyler had once added. But instead of feeling nostalgic, the music just emphasized who wasn't there. When she lit the charcoal and began to cook, the scent was just right, smoky and comforting, exactly like past summers. But there were no bursts of laughter, no shouts from running kids, no dad coaching her on fire control. Just the occasional hum of a passing car and the muted noise from neighboring backyards. She sat at the table with a cloth napkin and real silverware, determined to honor the moment. But despite her efforts, it felt less like a celebration and more like dining with a ghost. The absence of voices, of shared glances, and light-hearted bickering was deafening. She had upheld the tradition, kept her promise to herself. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was clinging to something her family had already let go. That evening, after clearing her solo dinner table and washing the handful of dishes, Aria collapsed onto her sofa, phone in hand. She wasn't expecting anything in particular, just scrolling to distract herself from the growing weight of solitude. But that was when the first cracks in the narrative began to show. On Instagram, her younger sister Chloe had posted a short story, just a few seconds, a shopping cart in a grocery store. But instead of basic necessities like she had claimed earlier, the cart was filled with party supplies, paper plates, plastic cups, a patriotic tablecloth, and even a bag of charcoal. The video was slightly blurry, but Aria could clearly make out the items. Her stomach turned. Chloe had told them her car was broken, that she couldn't get to work, let alone drive to a store. So how was she buying charcoal and cups for a cookout? Still, Aria tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Chloe was helping a friend. Maybe the video was old. Maybe the repairs had come through. She didn't want to think the worst, not after the heartfelt conversation with her father. Then came Tyler. On Snapchat, her younger brother posted a short video laughing in a liquor store with a group of friends hoisting a case of premium beer. What stopped Aria cold was the location tag Georgetown, their parents' town, not the campus area where Tyler supposedly lived. She frowned. Tyler had claimed he was struggling with end-of-semester costs and reduced work hours, but here he was smiling, shopping, and clearly not too concerned. Something wasn't adding up. She opened the family group chat again. Normally, this thread would be buzzing with messages before any family gathering, people joking, planning food, talking about the weather. But tonight, it was eerily quiet. Aria noticed that all responses were directed to her messages, no back and forth between the others, no playful banter. Just polite, minimal replies. It felt staged, as if they were performing normal only for her. That's when a strange feeling began to build in Aria's chest. Not quite sadness, not yet anger, but something sharper. Instinct. The same gut feeling that had guided her so often in her communications career was whispering now, something's off. Deeply off. She opened her photo gallery and scrolled through old memories, snapshots from barbecues past. Grandma Eleanor teaching little Aria how to flip burgers, Dad and Uncle Joe in their infamous corn-eating contests, Chloe and Tyler teenagers pretending to hate family photos, but secretly loving them, Mom and Aunt Valerie laughing until they cried. These weren't just pictures, they were proof of something once sacred, and now they felt distant, disconnected. And Aria couldn't help but ask herself, if today is still supposed to be barbecue day, where is everyone? Social media wasn't silent. It was just that Aria wasn't included in the conversation anymore. That night, as Aria finished washing the last few dishes from her solitary meal, her phone buzzed again. A new Instagram notification popped up. Chloe Bennett is going live. She nearly ignored it. Chloe often did live streams about her freelance projects or random thoughts, but something instinct maybe urged Aria to click in. The moment the live stream loaded, her breath caught in her throat. The camera was slightly shaky as Chloe walked, but the background was unmistakable, the backyard of Aria's childhood home. The same yard where her family used to gather every summer under string lights, where Grandma Eleanor used to flip ribs with a laugh that echoed through the trees. But this wasn't just a backyard. This was a full-scale barbecue celebration, one more lavish than any Aria had ever seen. Overhead, professional-grade string lights cast a warm glow. A massive white tent covered rows of tables draped in crisp linens. Floral centerpieces adorned each table. Guests were dressed up, wine glasses and hand laughter filling the air. Aria recognized nearly every face. Aunts, uncles, longtime family friends, even the neighbors from across the street. Everyone was there, except her. Best family barbecue ever, Chloe chirped on camera. Mom and Dad really went all out this year. The camera panned to the grill area where Tyler stood laughing beside several people in matching aprons, clearly hired caterers. A DJ booth with full sound and lighting equipment pulsed near the patio. The food setup included shrimp cocktail gourmet ribs, artfully plated salads, and what looked like high-end bakery desserts. This was no last-minute gathering. This was professionally planned. Expensive. Aria sat frozen. This was the party she had been planning. The same event she'd been told was canceled due to financial hardship. She began taking screenshots. The tent, the grill, the guest list, Chloe's commentary. She didn't know if she was collecting evidence or just trying to convince herself that this was real. But every snapshot felt like a new crack in her chest. Because the truth wasn't just that she had been lied to. It was that everyone she loved had played a part in excluding her. The live stream ended after about 15 minutes. Aria sat in her dim kitchen light from the phone, casting shadows across her stunned face. She had grilled alone, eaten alone, remembered her grandmother alone, while her entire family, the same people who'd claimed they couldn't afford to gather, were celebrating just a few miles away without her. And in that moment she knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was betrayal. Intentional, calculated. After the live stream ended, Aria sat motionless in her kitchen, the glow from her phone casting pale light across her stunned face. What once felt like a quiet suspicion was now undeniable, concrete, vivid, and painfully real. She reopened the screenshots she'd just taken. Each frame captured a new angle of betrayal: the giant white tent, professionally arranged banquet tables, uniformed catering staff, the DJ booth, even fireworks being prepared. There was no sign of this being a last-minute gathering. This had been planned, funded, and executed with precision. Then her mind began to rewind. She started connecting dots, dates, messages, requests, realizing that the deception hadn't begun with a canceled party. It had started months earlier. In January, her father called needing $800 for truck repairs. In March, her mother messaged asking for $600 for prescription costs insurance didn't cover. Chloe had requested $700 to help with rent and bills. Tyler had asked for support with textbooks and living expenses, nearly $2,000. At the time, Aria never questioned any of it. Each plea had come with urgency and guilt. I hate asking, but the deadline's tomorrow, or you're the only one I can turn to. And Aria, dependable, giving Aria, sent the money without hesitation. Now reviewing everything together, she realized she had sent them nearly $4,000. And somehow, it all lined up with the timeline of her barbecue planning. She logged into her bank account, pulled up transaction histories, and matched them against known vendor deposit dates for tents, catering, music. Every detail fell into place with disturbing precision. The money she'd sent thinking it was for emergencies may have paid for the very party she was excluded from. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a script. A well-orchestrated production wrapped in the costume of family hardship and disguised with soft apologies and heartfelt thanks. And suddenly, Aria wasn't sure what hurt more, being financially manipulated or realizing her family had knowingly pushed her out of something she'd lovingly built. She thought back to the hours she spent planning the late nights, comparing caterers, the joy of choosing decorations, the custom shirts she'd designed for everyone. Every bit of it had been real, but to them she had been a sponsor, not a sister. A walking bank account. And once they got what they needed, they fabricated a crisis, canceled the party, and quietly moved forward without her. As Aria scrolled through the images once more, the pain was still there, but it was now joined by something else: clarity. She was no longer the naive daughter who believed family couldn't betray her. She was someone who had seen the truth, and she knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. The next morning, the sky was overcast and drizzling, as if nature itself mirrored Aria's state of mind. She'd barely slept 3 hours after tossing and turning all night. The shock from the live stream was still present, but it had been replaced by something else: cold clarity. She made coffee hands, still slightly trembling, but her eyes were sharper now, no longer dazed. She picked up her phone not out of hope, but out of curiosity. She needed to see if anyone in the family would acknowledge what had happened. Nothing. The family group chat was silent. No explanations, no apologies, no mention of the extravagant party the night before. It was as if it had never happened. Then at exactly 9:37 a.m., her phone buzzed. A message from her father. "Good morning, sweetheart. Hope you had a peaceful weekend. I hate to ask on a Sunday, but we've got some urgent bills that came up. Could you help us out with $2,800? Mom's medical expenses weren't covered by insurance, and the mortgage is due tomorrow. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Love you." Aria stared at the screen in stunned disbelief. Less than 12 hours after she'd watched a professionally catered party complete with a DJ tent and gourmet food, her father was asking her for almost $3,000. No acknowledgement of what had happened. No trace of guilt. "Hope you had a peaceful weekend." It felt like a slap in the face. They knew exactly how she'd spent the weekend alone, grilling a single chicken thigh, while the rest of the family danced under twinkle lights in the backyard she grew up in. And now they wanted money. Again, this wasn't just a lie anymore. This was a pattern, one so deeply ingrained that they didn't even flinch while making the request. They didn't think she'd find out. They didn't think she'd do anything, even if she did. But they were wrong. Aria didn't respond right away. Instead, she calmly reopened the live stream screenshot, scrolled through family friends' posts from the night before, images of her father laughing under the tent, her mother toasting champagne, Chloe posing near the buffet table. She took a screenshot of the new message and placed it side by side with a still from the live stream. Saturday luxury party with DJ and fireworks. Sunday, can you send $2,800 for bills? She wasn't a victim anymore. She was the one holding the evidence. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't going to stay silent. Aria didn't scream. She didn't call anyone. She didn't send a long emotional message like she might have once done. Instead, she opened her laptop, logged into social media, and began to type. She didn't need to exaggerate. She didn't need bitterness. The truth was powerful enough. She created a side-by-side collage. On one side, her dad's text from that morning asking for $2,800 to cover urgent bills. On the other, a screenshot from Chloe's live stream the night before, elegant tables, a DJ booth, string lights, guests toasting champagne. Beneath it, she wrote, "Tuesday. We're too broke to have the barbecue. Saturday full-blown luxury party goes on without me. Sunday, can you send $2,800 to cover medical bills and rent?" Starting to realize what I've really been funding. She tagged every family member involved, along with a few longtime family friends who had attended past barbecues. No added drama, no accusations, just the truth side by side. Within the hour, the post exploded. Friends flooded the comments with outrage and support. Some who had known her family for years expressed shock, disappointment, even betrayal. But the most eye-opening reactions came from people who had been at the party the night before. One family friend commented, "Wait, Aria wasn't invited? I thought she just showed up late." Her pictures were still hanging up. Another messaged her privately apologizing for unknowingly participating in a lie. Meanwhile, the family group chat erupted. Chloe fired first. "Why would you post our private business online? You're humiliating us." Tyler chimed in. "You're totally overreacting. It was just a casual get-together. People brought food. No big deal." Her mother messaged separately, pleading, "You're tearing this family apart. Can't you take the post down? Everyone's embarrassed enough already." But it was her father's message that delivered the final blow. "I can't believe you'd humiliate your own family over money. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. You're destroying our reputation with friends and relatives over some misplaced jealousy. And honestly, this is exactly why we didn't invite you in the first place." That last line felt like a slap. No more pretense, No more half-lies. They had chosen to exclude her, intentionally. Aria replied with one simple sentence. "You're right, Dad. And that's exactly why I will no longer be funding this family." Then she blocked them all. No screaming, no drama, just a truth bomb dropped quietly with surgical precision. And a final act of closure after a lifetime of being the one who always gave without asking. After posting the screenshots and blocking everyone, Aria didn't feel victorious. There was no satisfaction, no rush of power. What she felt was silence. For the first time in her adult life, she was no longer the first call when something went wrong. She sat in her familiar kitchen listening to the quiet hum of the fridge and the soft whoosh of the AC. Her phone was silent. No buzzing with urgent messages. No requests for just a little help. No sweet-sounding pleas followed by a bank transfer. What Aria had done wasn't impulsive. It was a surgical separation from a system she'd unknowingly upheld for years. A system where she was the safety net, the fixer, the always reliable big sister, and most dangerously the one holding the family together while it pulled her apart. She opened her laptop and took action. First, changed every single banking password. Then she revoked her parents' access to her savings account, an account she once let them use for convenience when she traveled. Next, she removed her mother's login from her credit card once shared just in case of emergencies. Then came the call to the bank. She calmly explained her situation, flagged her accounts for potential familial financial abuse, and requested additional security layers. The representative, though professional, sounded like she'd heard stories like Aria's before. It gave Aria comfort and a strange sense of solidarity. The entire call lasted 30 minutes. No crying, no panic. Just firm, precise steps like someone not cleaning up a mess but building something better from the ground up. That afternoon, Aria reviewed every transaction she had made in the past 6 months. Each transfer once labeled in her mind as love or support now looked different. They weren't gifts. They were emotional withdrawals masked as kindness. $800 for her dad's truck repairs, $600 for her mom's prescriptions, $700 for Chloe's rent crisis. All wrapped in family guilt and presented as emergencies. But Aria wasn't compiling this for revenge. She was doing it to wake herself up. By cutting off the money, she wasn't just halting cash flow, she was redrawing the boundary lines of her life. For the first time ever, she defined the difference between love and obligation, between helping and being used. She still loved her family, but now that love had terms. It came with the expectation of respect, honesty, and mutual care. And if those terms weren't met, then she would no longer be the version of herself they had grown so used to depending on. She'd be someone else herself finally. After years of playing the role of the provider, Aria was finally learning what it felt like to just be herself. No obligations, no guilt, no silent contracts bound by blood. She hadn't cut ties completely with her family, but she was no longer their emergency fund. Their calls when they came were shorter, more formal. There were no more lines like, "Can you help us out?" or "Just this once." When the phone rang, Aria answered not with anxiety, but with peace, knowing she owed no one anything. Some connections softened over time. Her mother, after weeks of silence, started texting simple check-ins without hidden requests. Chloe sent a half-hearted apology, awkward but honest. Tyler still insisted that everything had been blown out of proportion, but at least he'd stopped asking for money. As for her father, Frank, he remained distant, cold, as though he were the one betrayed. But Aria didn't try to fix things anymore. She no longer believed that family meant endless forgiveness. Family to her now wasn't about DNA. It was about how people choose to treat each other. She reconnected with old friends, the ones she'd sidelined for years, while dealing with family crises. She started investing time in herself again, trying new recipes, taking long walks on Sundays, picking up the guitar she hadn't touched in years. Every small act was a step toward reclaiming her life. Then on a warm day in June, exactly 1 year after she was excluded from the family barbecue, Aria hosted one of her own. A modest rooftop gathering at her apartment building. No DJ, no fireworks, no pressure, just real friends, the kind who held her when she cried, who texted her when she went quiet, who laughed with her, not at her when she found her way back. Together they grilled chicken using Grandma Eleanor's recipe, they played the old playlist, they created new memories on their own terms. For the first time in years, Aria felt genuinely safe. She didn't need to prove anything. She didn't have to carry the weight. She didn't have to belong to be loved. And in that moment, she understood something she'd never grasped before. Family doesn't drain you. True family fills you.